at the corners.
Don't let me forget these, because at the end, we'll do it at the end. We'll close the meeting first and we'll kill the, I mean, unless this is a spectacle. I'll do it as you see fit, but I don't know what's in the bag. That's what I'm worried about.
Where did all the creatures come from down there?
The creatures, Dave, those are called toy soldier
I know.
sentinels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we
And
need all of them?
no, they moved 2 of them to the bandstand.
No, they didn't move to it. They got 2 additional
Those were
ones.
additional?
Yes, by the bandstand. They're gorgeous.
Who made it?
The 2 big ones, I think it was Elizabeth's brother and Sally Hildebrand that did that. I think that's probably something I should make a comment on.
Jesus, they're down there now.
man.
Working.
I know they've been working, and they hung the ball. Did you see the ball?
Yeah,
They got it up there.
putting pressure on us now.
Yeah, I know.
I just hope it ain't like 10 below.
I
Seem
know.
like
Really was into the whole nutcracker.
Yeah,
Hey, if you're not doing anything Friday night,
yeah. I saw the Nutcracker once, and I wasn't.
CACC, where we have our.
You know,
Get it.
I watch it every year.
Oh,
Christmas
remind-
Eve.
So we're just gonna
Yeah.
be, all we're doing
Wonderful life
is,
for James.
you're on your own, and it's in, but she called.
Remind me.
Storm King.
Absolutely.
So if you have to be there.
Can I get everybody to stand up and face the flag for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, take your seats. Please be advised that the mics are live. Apologize for the last minute change in venue. We had a struggle with the smart board inside the work session room. Megan came in on her own time. Mark Frankel came in on his own time to try to rectify that. The only way to make it work would have been to run it through a laptop and use that camera. Somebody would have to be there to monitor that, so I just made the decision to move back here. The new link, in case anybody's texting you or asking you, has been posted on our Facebook page and should be available on the village website. We sent it to Robin, who manages it for us. So please, if anybody asks you about that, tell them that's where you're going to get it. Trustee? How are you, sir?
Bill?
That's all right. As far as tonight, we've got a full board. This is a work session, although there will be one resolution. It is on the agenda, and if you don't have an agenda and want one, they're available at the table where the superintendents are. Keep in mind, we have no attorney here tonight. We have no village clerk here tonight. We literally are run amok, so we'll try to make everything work. So for tonight, the first thing I've asked Justin Wood from Nugent and Hausler, who are the accounting firm that handle the village's compilations, which happen annually, where they take a look at our budget and they make sure that everything that's in the black is supposed to be in the black, everything that's in the red is supposed to be in the red, and that everything balances out. Make sure we're on track. And then they conduct audits. Audits are supposed to be done via decree of the village board every 2 years. But because of COVID, there was a suspension of 1 year, 2 years. And so really, we should have had one done last year. We didn't. So we had it done for last year instead of in 2021. We will get back on that 2-year track. That means that every mayoral administration is subject to an audit, and that's the way that it should be. So really, without further ado, because we have a lot to get to after this, I've asked Justin to give us about a 20-minute or so kind of dump. Every trustee should have gotten a copy of the audit. And then as he's briefing on it, he has graciously agreed that if a trustee has a question, do it in the moment. Don't
Feel
wait
free to
until-
interrupt, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
just hit him at the time and say, wait a minute, I'm confused, or what does this mean? And without further ado, Justin, and Chief Dixon will not be here tonight too. Something came up, he's okay, but something came up tonight. So other than that, we have everybody here we need. Mr. Wood, it is all yours.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, everybody, for having me here tonight. Just a quick history of my firm. My name is Justin Wood. I am a partner with Nugent and Hauser PC. They're based in Montgomery, New York. They've been in existence for going on 100 years. I've been there for 21 of them, and I've been a partner for 6 years. And I've been coming to the village in some capacity over the last 15 years or so. So I'm very familiar with the staff. I'm very familiar with the procedures here at the village. And I do just want to thank James and Mike and Doris and Paula and Gabby and everybody who contributed and provided the information that I need in order to fulfill your needs for the audit of the financial statements of the Village of Cornwall. Now, just to be specific, we're doing this for the year ended February 28th, 2023. That covers from March 1st, 2022 through February 28th, 2023. Okay?
So this past February is when it ended.
Yes, so it ended February 28th.
The end of our fiscal year.
Yes, is the end of your fiscal year, right. So I am going to bounce around the report some, so I flagged my pages, which means I'll get there a lot quicker. I'll be patient and give everybody the opportunity to get where they need to go. Having said that, however, I'm going to start right on page 1. So page 1 of the audit report is exactly that, the independent auditor's report. This is where we state our opinion of the financial statements to ensure that they're free from material misstatement. And the village did receive what we refer to as an unmodified opinion. It's otherwise known as a clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that we can give on the financial statements. Now, having said that, I do just want to deep dive right into some of the financial information for the operating funds. So we're going to switch right to page 22 and give the results of each fund. And then I will talk about fund balance and the breakdown thereof, that fund balance. So for starters, on page 22, you're going to see the general fund column, which is the village's general operations, includes the police, highway, and all the building. Basically anything outside of the water and sewer funds, and that is not in the capital projects, falls within the general fund. The general fund during the year came in with a surplus of $42,825. That brings the fund balance for the general fund to $3,354,000, which I'll give a breakdown of what that is and kind of give it to you in relative terms. The water fund did have a deficit in the year ended February 28, 2023 of $118,000. However, I do want to bring up the point that there was a tremendous amount of repairs done in the water fund that year. And by running those repairs through the water fund itself, it allowed the village to avoid financing and therefore allowed the village to avoid interest costs in the future for that. So to be able to do these large repairs directly out of the operating fund is a huge advantage to the village. And that brings that water fund's fund balance to a very healthy $1.5 million, where 5-6 years ago, the water fund was operating more or less on a check-to-check basis kind of thing, to put it in perspective, but now is been able to build that surplus and it's financially strong. The sewer, even more so there, surplus during the year of close to $250,000, bringing the fund balance in the sewer fund up to $2.2 million. And again, I'll kind of get back into those fund balances in a moment. I'm just going to backtrack 2 pages to the balance sheet of the governmental funds on page 20, which top third of the page lists the assets of the general fund, roughly $4 million. There's some liabilities at year end related to vendor payables. Included in there is some of the ARPA money that the village is still holding. And that brings you down to the bottom third of the page in fund balance. So as I said before, the general fund has $3.3 million in fund balance. That is made up of, in restricted fund balances, $609,000.
What does restricted mean?
Restricted for specific purposes,
Okay.
right? Which I'm going to give you right now. So there's a
Different from the available, which
Right.
it means our rainy day fund.
right. So the restricted fund balances in the general fund include $270,000 that have been accumulated in the capital reserve funds, which are for, I'm sorry, I just got to look at my cheat sheet here. For the police, the DPW, and the fire protection, there's $90,000 in each of those capital reserves, right? And then it also includes the net assets of the LOSAP, the Lankless Service Award Program. So the net assets for that is also restricted for that purpose of $340,000, right? Then the assigned amount, the $63,245, is the appropriated fund balance for the 23-24 budget, the following year's budget. which is the planned deficit in the budget for the 23-24, right? So there's so much in appropriations that were budgeted for, and then the revenues and the tax levy came in 63,245 budgeted less. Therefore, there's a planned deficit of 63,245. So we assign that fund balance, assuming that at the end of the next year, it will be gone. That's not actual results, that's the budgeted results, right? Leaving an unassigned or quote unquote available fund balance of $2,681,000. This, as a percentage of the following year's budget, is 60.95%. Now, use that as a measurement because that's what the New York State Comptroller uses as a measurement, is a percentage of the following year's budget. Now, the Comptroller starts assessing fiscal stress once you fall below 20% of the following year's budget. So to put that into perspective, they start assessing fiscal stress once it falls below 20%. You're at 60.95%.
Is
So
there a cap?
there is not a legal cap in municipalities. No, there is not.
Except
Right.
for residents that would lose their mind if taxes are raised and then you're sitting on this huge fund that you're not reinvesting.
Right. It's a balance. Yes.
I know the schools have a cap on.
The schools have a 4% of they have a 4% of unassigned or available cap. They also have the ability to fund reserves that the village does not have the ability to
That's the
fund.
reason why it's different than what the New York State Comptroller recommends for municipalities, for us
Yes.
to keep it at 20%?
Right. Yes,
That's a
because
big difference, 20% to 4%.
4%, and they've been lobbying to increase that for many, many years. It's been 4% for quite a while. But they have a plethora of reserves that they can fund.
Yep.
That the village can't legally fund the same kind of reserves that they can. So
Is there guidance or best practice from the comptroller's office about?
that percentage, no, right? So there's two schools of thought. I kind of always, compare it to my personal finances where either you're living by the skin of your teeth or you're saving everything you get, So and I also generally say this, if I was moving and I came to you and said, okay, you're going to write me a check of my portion of the fund balance. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. So you got to kind of have that balance, right? So then I do just want to discuss the water and the sewer fund, their fund balances. So the water full restricted fund balance does include $30,000 of a capital reserve. However, the full amount is restricted because it's restricted for the purposes of the water fund, right? So all of it goes to restricted. So the available of 1.481 is 45.7% of the following year's budget. So again, very healthy. And then in the sewer fund, there's actually a $640,000 reserve that started accumulating back in 14-15, and reducing that 2.2 million in restricted to what's available to 1.564 in unassigned fund balance. Now this amount is 281% of the following year's budget. However, I do just want to point out that both of those funds, the water and the sewer specifically, are the most susceptible funds to any natural disaster that could occur. Right? And we see thunderstorms roll through this area and can do serious damage.
We have we're liable for 40% of.
Yeah, the town owns
the town, right.
So we're gonna be making payments.
Ours is
to the town.
40%,
Right. So if,
and that's why that was created in 14 and 15.
yes, you have some expenses coming. Right. Not only that, but the other fact that you're so susceptible to natural disaster. That's why I always want to bring that up when
That
we
was
talk.
Created when we lost the sewer plant.
Got it. Right. So there's no such thing as too healthy in those funds, in my opinion. Great. So just from there, a couple of things that I do like to point out. One on page 18 in the government-wide, only because I've had questions on this specific liability in the past, and I just do want to have a quick discussion on it. So what we were just looking at were the fund financial statements. They're reported on a 12-month modified accrual basis, right? So they're only looking out 12 months for assets and liabilities that we're recording. When we do the government-wide, the statement of net position on page 18, we bring in all those long-term assets, the buildings, all other capital assets, the associated debt with those capital assets. And then there's also another liability that the Governmental Accounting Standards Board requires us to record called the other post-employment benefits payable. Now, this is the present value of all of your retiree health insurance payments that you'll have to make for the next 30 years.
30 years?
For the next 30 years. Yeah, they look out 30 years and do a present
Is there
value.
escalation in that?
there is an escalation in it. The actuaries perform an actuarial report that they give us. They've measured this liability at $11 million. Okay? So significant amount. It kind of skews your numbers. I bring it up because I want everybody to understand that the bonding company is aware of this. So when you're going out to bond and you have this big ugly liability, like they're aware, they kind of back that off to get you a more realistic number. And I also want to bring it up because the village is only allowed to fund the next 12 months, right? You can only budget your retiree health insurance payments for the next 12 months. So you can't, like we were talking before, you could put money into, like the school district can put money in other reserves. The village cannot put money aside for this. They're not allowed to. They can only budget for the next 12 months of retiree health insurance.
So then they're not forced to escalate that either.
No, I'm sorry if I'm not following that.
They don't have to procure additional funds for possible raises in that amount.
No, right. And, no, the schools don't either. And the villages aren't, the schools and villages aren't allowed to fund this. And this amount changes every year.
Right.
Right, so they changed. So next year the interest rates went up. This amount will go down dramatically because of the interest rates going up. So I did just want to bring that up, and then just the internal control stuff in the back on page 68. So like all entities this size that we perform audits on, we're always going to report a limited segregation of duties. Because, and to be honest, this office, more than most, considering the size, has a good amount of individuals within the office. But proper segregation of duties would have you have a human resource person, one payroll person. So it would be unrealistic to have that size of staff for an entity this size. And we have this finding in all entities this size that we do.
Because there doesn't seem to be a one-size-fits-all for towns, villages, and cities. Even if you look at comps, you and I spoke about this when we did the compilation.
Right.
You can't find a similar front office to ours. We have people hired that other places don't.
Right.
And that was one of the things that you and I had talked about, just ensuring that, the deputy village treasurer and now the part-time treasurer, that we make sure that they're walled off in certain aspects. And how do you go about doing it? That's what we're working on.
Right, and checks and balances are in place, mitigating controls, that kind of stuff are definitely in place. And then the other one is management, oversight, and monitoring. Outside of there being a CPA overlooking the office, we also always include this as one of the findings as well, because for that reason. So that's all I really wanted to go through. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Yeah, I want to start real quick, and this is some of the stuff we've talked about, and I had my first face-to-face meeting with our part-time village treasurer, who people will recognize as our recently retired,
I was happy to hear that as well.
longtime,
You were.
our longtime village clerk and treasurer. And I just want to call attention to the fact that I'm gonna actually move this up because it actually meets in with this, which is under other business, it says budget update. So one of the things in talking about fund balance, and Bill asked a great question about, and for us, what is a healthy number? As we're starting to look long-term, we're looking at fire department apparatus and things that we need to replace, not just 4 years from now, but 10 years from now, or 15 years from now, and scheduling that. How much money should we be spending? How much should we be funding things with fund balance? And I just want to give the trustees a quick example. So last year, I think we were somewhere around 55% of next year's budget in available fund balance. This year, we're at 60.8%.
60.5, let's say call it 60, right?
5%, or so it looks like we bumped it up by 5%. Okay, so last year, so that we stayed under the tax cap, what the village treasurer did was moved $60,000 of the unallocated available fund balance over to make ends meet. This year, as we're starting to look at, and you talked about them, and I hate to use the term entitlements because they're employees' retirements and raises and things like that. We're looking at, some numbers that are gonna push us over the tax cap that gets set by New York State. We don't set it. I don't wanna say it's an arbitrary number. They come up with what it is. But this year, it's only 1.02%. So we'll vote to go over it. I mean, in the event that we did. And then, my goal is, and this is what I've told our department heads, that we're not increasing our budgets there except for things that just cost more. Dave has to go out and buy sand, and sand is more expensive this year. Mike has to buy petrol, and it's more expensive. It is what it is, but we're not coming up with any grandiose projects. We got enough of that focused on with New York Forward that we're not spending village money on that. But to make things stay just under the cap, and don't quote me on this because there's gonna be some massaging, and I have yet to, and that'll be happening next week, and the week after, meet with the department heads on their particular budgets. The board has to have a budget approved by February 1st. And if we don't approve that budget, this budget becomes the budget. And that budget would take effect on March 1st, which is the start of our fiscal year. So the last thing I'm gonna say is, as I'm looking at, should we be spending more fund balance? Not like drunken sailors, but this year, and I'm gonna add this to the budget, the board may move over $140,000 or $150,000 in fund balance to keep us below the tax cap. And in doing so, if you do the math, $2.6 million of available fund balance, and you do $140,000 moved over to offset, that's 5%. Well, that was the increase from last year's against this year's budget. As far as this year's against next year's budget, that's the 5%. This is something that I threw out with Gene today and just kind of talked about, Justin. Does that make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, or do you go,
I would
that makes
say
sense"?
it's fair, and the other thing I think about is this sustainable, right? Because once you put that number into your budget, it's hard to go down from there, right? Because then what's the other place that's going to go up if you
Something's
go
gonna
down?
get
there?
cut.
Something's going to get cut, or the taxes
taxes
have
are
to
gonna
go
go
up. Right. So if you said $350,000, I'd be like, "Ooh, geez, that would be hard to sustain." Right. So if you start knocking 150 off of this, you're probably looking at, before you get down to the 20% number, roughly in my head, you're probably looking at easily a decade of being able to withstand. And that's a planned deficit. That doesn't mean it would be the actual deficit. Right. So that would give you about the next 10 years of kind of consistently using a number like that or thereabouts without having a
That's
major.
provided that the cap doesn't go up.
That's providing that the cap does, yes, at this current cap, right.
And providing that, it's dependent on things like inflation, cost of goods and services.
Absolutely right.
And also what are outstanding.
Yes.
Retirement funds and.
So I would say that number is reasonable and sustainable in the future. However, as David pointed out, there's a lot of other factors, and Bill pointed out, there's a lot of other variables that fall in. But for this coming year, that would be my opinion.
So that didn't make you nervous just hearing?
No, not hearing that number. I was actually numbers were going through my head, that one seems
So
reasonable.
who sets the cap? The comptroller?
I believe so.
And so is it set against the CPI?
No,
What's it set against?
I don't know. I would have to do research.
Why is
on-
it going down from 1.66 to?
Well, it was close to 2%.
It was
1 year.
almost 2. It was
Yeah.
1.66.
Two was the baseline.
Started at 2 as
Two
the
was the baseline. Yeah,
Then it's been
right.
ticking down.
Right. I'm sorry. I'm not exactly sure how they come up with it, because you would think with inflation going up as
Yeah.
much as it is, they
I
wouldn't go
wondered
the
what
other
that was
way.
based against.
Right. Right.
Huh. Okay, you answered my question. I just wanted the board to kind of know what my
Absolutely.
thinking was on fund balance and what, if anything, we should be allocating or using to offset, budgetary things. I'll turn it over to anybody else on the board. Anybody else have any questions for Justin?
No, I'm glad that he came though. It's very good. We didn't have this all the time.
Bill?
No, I think, not to get ahead of ourselves, but I think use of fund balance to prevent tax increases probably
Yeah.
a pretty wise thing to do. You don't wanna.
Well, in a small budget, it's only like 1 point. It's about,
Yeah.
20,000, a little over 20,
Yeah.
something like that.
Lord
Just
Beth?
so-
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Laura Beth.
No,
Go ahead.
Anything? Jim?
I just have one question, that's in regards to the short-term and long-term debt. I know combined, it's pages, let's see,
18.
I believe, 44 and 45. So, I think we have a total of, let's serial line, 1.8 million. I guess the question, let me see. I guess the question is, well, if you include LoSAP and all of it, I'm looking at the short-term debt bands and our serial bonds. You know, we've taken down over the years. We started way back when, and there was quite a bit, and now we're down pretty low. So I guess my question is this, from your perspective, what's the sweet spot with respect to bands and serial bonds? I know it's better, obviously, to have none, but you're always gonna have some.
Right.
So comparative to our revenue and our expenditures, looking back on the past, we seem to be holding our own. We're doing pretty well. But I guess my question is maybe on a percentage wise, if you had to give it a number.
So I don't know if I would go with a percentage. What I would say is that it's part of your expenditure budget, right? Part of your appropriations is your debt payments. And I would try to plan in that you can be consistent with those payments. So in other words, if a bond is falling off in 3 or 4 years from now and you're starting a project now, maybe you ban those first couple of years, and then when that one falls off, you convert that band to bond.
Right.
And I would almost want to look out at your maturity schedule to kind of see when things fall off, when other projects are going to be happening, and when, because for a regular ban, you get 4 renewals. For water and sewer systems, you get 7 renewals. But you can convert to bond during any one of those years.
Right.
So I would look at and you can put down as much principal or as little principal as you want on a ban. You have to pay whatever the band's interest is that year.
Right.
So I would factor that in as far as wanting your debt service appropriations to be consistent year to year. My other factor would be the current interest rate situation.
Yeah.
It might be worth holding back converting a band to a bond at this point because interest rate, I mean, I don't want to speculate what interest rates are going to do, but if you think in the next couple of years that they're going to come down to a more reasonable rate and you'd rather lock in at 20 years, 3 years from now than today, then it might be worth renewing those bands.
I guess I'm looking at too is with our unassigned fund balance, if we're making large expenditures, very large expenditures, and the way I kind of look at it is you're going to bond it out. I mean, you don't want to use a lot of your unassigned fund balance, because to me you're buying something like a piece of equipment that might be $1 million.
Right.
You know, that's around for 20 or 30 years. So it's kind of more of I would term it a generational thing. So it's not, the taxpayers now shouldn't be funding it all, and everybody else on the back end gets the benefit to a certain extent.
Gotcha. And that makes sense.
So that's why I'm just trying to, I just wanted to see if you think where we sit on our debt that we're fine. I mean, my feeling is we are, but in regards to the short term and the serial bonds, the long term.
Right. I just want to take a quick look at the debt schedule. Right. So you have some ongoing bonds right now, all of them at relatively high rates, between 4 and 5.5%. And then not a lot sitting there on bonds other than the EFC.
Right.
Right. So I guess the timing, and the EFC is going to be around till 2040. So you're not necessarily going to go that, hey, wait until
That's
that one
being-
falls off to start to convert the other ones. You don't really
That's
have
being
that
paid
option.
out of the water funds, the EFC, right? Okay, so that's coming out of rates. It's not
Yes.
even coming out of taxes, so, okay.
Yeah. So, and I would say that the ones like the Donahue Farm, the various equipment, transportation equipment, if it all kind of like you're budgeting for, let's say Donahue Farm, $88,000 between interest and principal and interest. If you can convert that to bond for roughly that same amount of principal and interest for the year for the next 10, 15 years, then maybe that makes sense. Like, hey, and then our budget's consistent with that one.
Right.
And then we can consider in a couple of years taking on another ban. And then there is that balance, like you said, between, hey, do we just use fund balance to pay for it now, or do we use bonding and pay interest in the future? And you make a valid point there. One point I would bring up is that a lot of us think about debt as we do our mortgage at home, where, I want to be done with my mortgage eventually, but this village isn't going anywhere. Right? This is in perpetuity. The village will always have debt in the village. So you never want to think about it like, hey, we're going to be debt free in 16 years. Like that's most likely never going to happen. You're always going to have debt in the future.
When something comes off, something will go on.
Something will come on, right? And that's the one point that I would drive home is to try to keep your appropriations consistent with your debt. Obviously, they're going to go up slightly, right? But try to keep them consistent versus these big leaps up with the debt.
Your sense is that we're doing okay in that regard?
Right, absolutely. Yes, yes. And it might be, given these interest rates on the bands, I don't know, I don't want to speculate what the interest rates are going to do, but it might be worth kind of waiting it out a little bit and renewing them a year or two to see if the rates will come down. But again, I don't want the rates to jump up and then you call me and say, hey, what happened?
We never.
We're gonna, any other alibis, any other questions from any of the trustees? Justin, thank you so much.
thank you.
Justin came in and sat down with me and the then village treasurer a couple months ago with the compilation and walked me through it in a little bit deeper detail. I told him to give you guys the crib notes, but truly appreciate what you're doing, kind of, getting us on track and telling us what we need to focus on. We're blessed that Jean came back. It's amazing how she hit the ground running, flipped open the laptop and boom, was talking about things like she just left, I don't know, in August, when she just left in August. So it was so comforting knowing that it wasn't like, no, this means this and this means this. So very, very comforting, but we are in a position, and if you hear anything, the village is going to be posting for a part-time treasurer next month to try to get somebody on board to kind of take some of this stuff
Maybe
away
you
from
could just work some nights.
I already tried to seduce him over here. He goes,
I'm sure
no,
you-
he goes,
I'm
I'm
sure
doing
you
good
did.
at the firm.
I'm
I don't
sure
need to
you
come to
did,
the
Jim.
village. So, just thank you.
Thank
Thank
so
you.
much.
Happy
Very
holidays,
good.
everybody. Thank you.
Appreciate
Take
you.
care. Yes.
And since we're on the topic right now, before I wrap this and we'll move into the chronological order of the rest of the meeting, folks, you should have it. Jean got this, prepared this for us today. It says draft on there, draft. Please understand, this is a draft. This is not to go anywhere else. This is for trustees' eyes only. Obviously, the department heads who have submitted these budgets, or these budget line items, so that you understand. And as a refresher, Lori Beth, anything with A on it, so the first line of the code has A, is coming out of the general fund. Anything with W is coming out of the water fund. And obviously, everything with an S in front of it is coming out of the sewer fund. So when you see that A there, those different line items for code, that's what that means.
There's a white Honda SUV / maybe pickup that's got its lights are on.
Oh, that's me.
Sorry.
That's
I meant to
okay.
say it when I called.
Okay, thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you. So remember, we have to pass this in early February, so next week. No, it's gotta be passed by
February 1st. Yeah.
February 1st, exactly, or this goes into effect, I said early February, yeah, February 1st, and then this goes into effect in March. So any changes, any issues, any questions, and the trustees all know this, but Lori Beth, you have a question about something fire-related, you pick up the phone and call Chief Quinn. You have a question with something water-related, you don't need to go through, I'm sorry, you'll, yep, we're gonna learn. We had some growing pains in how we're doing with the fire commission. We're gonna get that all figured out. But go to the water superintendent, go to the DPW superintendent, talk to the building inspector, talk to the police chief. Hey, what's this $36 for widgets here? Is this, what does this mean or whatever? Because I learn something every time we do a budget, so. All right, so you've got a copy of that. Again, please keep that close hold. This is not our budget, and we don't want that to be put out as our budget yet. So, all right, that's that. Next item is really quick. The board approved some donations to the Cornwall Youth Committee and the Cornwall on Hudson Special Events Committee. So I'm gonna put forth the resolution. The one thing we did not do was pass a resolution authorizing the transfer of funds to make this happen. So this motion is gonna include a movement for adoption for a line item budget adjustment from Alpha 7310.1, which is a summer recreation expense, to Alpha 7550.4, cultural and patriotic expense line, in the amount of $2,743.13 in order to pay $1,300 to Cornwall and Hudson Special Events Committee and $1,443.13, because that's exactly what it cost them, I guess, and they asked for that specific amount, to the Cornwall Youth Committee. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right. Jim, if you can just make note of the time on that for me for, and I don't think I opened the meeting tonight either, did I? So I'm gonna make a motion to open the meeting.
Yeah.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. You'd think after 3 years now that I'd remember that. Okay, so that's the resolution. That is done. Next item of business is monthly department reports, and the first one is the treasurer's reports. So obviously, we're working on Gabby's departure and Jean coming on board. But the first one we have is the November monthly water open balances for the village of $274,126.53. The town of $254,041.41 for a total of $528,167.94. Warrant number 12 is obviously not available yet. I will have that available for the board and the public at Monday night's business meeting, Monday, December 18th. Monthly revenue and expenditure reports by fund. General fund revenue of $4,363,715.51. Expenditures of $3,960,317.97. Water fund revenue of $2,066,446.22. Expenditures of $1,898,543.29. And sewer fund revenue of $451,885.70, with expenditures of $402,628.33. For total receipts of $6,682,047.43, or 89.93% in anticipated revenues, and $6,261,489.59, or 76.38% in anticipated expenditures through the end of November. The village tax collection period ended on October 31st. Unpaid taxes totaling $143,204.57 have been turned over to the Orange County Commission of Finance for collection. They've been relevied. The balance collected for sewer capital is $559,060.52 through November 30th. And therein is the monthly treasurer's report for the month of November 2023. Any questions from board members? All right, moving on. Building department. Mr. Carmona, anything on your building report that should be drawn to the attention of the board?
No, sir.
Board members, any questions for Mr. Carmona?
How's our new inspector working out?
It's working out very well, very eager to learn. He's very aggressive on that. I've asked a lot of questions, which is great. He's already doing some inspections. I don't think he's ready to be turned loose 100% yet, but slowly I'm letting him do inspection, a couple here and there by himself. But overall, I always go out with him.
Was he in today, Manny?
He was not in today, but he will be in tomorrow.
Got it. He's a full-time firefighter, I think in Arlington, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And he's fully certified and ready to go.
Yes, he is, ma'am.
So what exactly,
Why he got hired, he became certified.
so what exactly do you feel he needs to understand more before he can go ahead and do inspections on his own?
This is an experience situation, you can't say this person is ready to go out on your own. I mean, it's gonna be an ongoing training. Even for me, after 20 years, I still train. Doing inspection, as I mentioned this morning, is not just doing the inspection. There's a lot of components that go with it that you can only pick up with experience. You gotta be able to deal with people. You gotta be able to look at other things other than what's in the box for the inspection. Because everything for that property truly is connected. Once you hit that property, then you're responsible for the property, so to speak. If you see something that requires attention, to bring it up to the attention of the property owner. So it's a process that he'll be doing property maintenance at the beginning. That's gonna be his main job. Anything to do with grass, snow removal, sidewalks, things of that nature. That'll get him into the idea of training his eyes on what to look for. So we're in that process right now.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Lori Beth.
Do you have an idea of how much longer you think that'll take before he can go off on his own? And then, so both of you be doing 2 sets?
I think by the middle of this year coming up, he'll be able to do a lot of inspection on his own for property maintenance. And then I'm training him to do some of the other inspection, like for construction. He'll probably be doing some of those as well. I think the second part of next year.
Does he have some overlap time with you this week on your schedules at all?
Yes, tomorrow and Thursday. Well, Thursday is the party, but we're gonna get here early enough to try to do a couple of items before we go to the party. So today and tomorrow we'll be working.
Perfect.
We're gonna be working together, at least for the next 2 or 3 more months. And then
Okay.
we're gonna start breaking away. Maybe he'll do one day by himself and 2 today with me, something like that.
He doesn't have a computer by the end of next week. Please let me know.
Megan called me tonight and she said that she spoke with the IT department and they will be in tomorrow to install the computer.
Thank goodness. Okay, good. Awesome. All right, will you just give me a thumbs up when that's done? When you
sir.
guys see it and it's all done and he's able to log in and all that?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Any other board member with a question for the code enforcement officer? All right, moving on to the fire department. Chief Quinn, anything you want to bring to the attention of the board?
Yes, the first two items that I enumerated, I'm very excited about. They're new training incentives coming from New York State. Right now, they're still in a review period. The first one, I think, is going to be a no-brainer. It's incentive for especially our younger members to get training. They'll get an incentive from New York State, $2,000 and $1,000 for some of the initial courses, which is wonderful. But they've also enacted enabling legislation. The village can start its own incentive program now, where the village can pay up to $500 for other New York State training courses.
So that would just be a board resolution, suggesting that we would do that?
I don't-
have to look into- It's probably a Joe McKay question.
That's a Joe McKay question for sure.
Or what we have to do. I think that's a great idea. All right, so I'm gonna show my ignorance here. Outside of like emergency medical technician, EMT training, like what would be some additional certification a firefighter would get?
Emergency vehicle operation, engine operation, ladder operation, automobile extrication, high-angle rescue, all sorts of awareness courses, trench rescue, water rescue, ice rescue. Want to tick off some more? Hit them all. There are quite a few more than that.
Excellent. Okay, I can understand why those would be two things that you'd be excited about. That's awesome. That's great news. All right, what else? Anything else?
Yes, we've heard from Santa Claus. He's asked us to drive him around the village on December 23rd.
He waited till the last minute this year to get permission, huh? To get you guys to do it. Awesome. All right, so that's gonna be on what, Christmas Eve?
No.
23rd, day before Christmas Eve.
23rd, okay, day before Christmas Eve. Is that normally the day we do
So
it?
it's a Saturday.
The Saturday before Christmas.
Awesome, outstanding. All right.
Food drive with that.
And Santa will be collecting food for the food bank, as he goes around the village.
Awesome, that's awesome, alright, and as far as tomorrow goes, I've already looped, the superintendent, for the DPW in, but apparently after school, the Winterfest thing is happening at the bandstand with the no ball drop or anything. I think that's gonna require high angle rescues or a ladder truck. Dave, you don't need anything from the fire department in regards to doing that. Okay, you and I will speak offline then. All right, Charlie, you're good then. You're off the hook then. We're not gonna drag you in for that then. Okay. All right, anything else on the fire side, Charlie?
No.
All right, trustees, anything for the chief?
Oh, good.
All right, moving on. Next item is the police department, and the chief is not here. He and I met this morning, and I'm not gonna reread these things. We'll obviously read them aloud at the business meeting, but trustees, take a look. If there's anything on there that causes you any type of agita or needs more attention, let me know.
Spike in domestic.
It's that kind of year, Bill.
Yeah, yeah, all right.
Consumption.
Enforcement goes so busy.
Yep.
As
Suspicious
requested.
incident calls, is that usually?
Where are you looking? So, where are you looking at?
The middle, non-criminal activity.
Suspicious incident calls?
5?
You got 5? Yeah, but see, that can be something as benign as somebody saying they saw a flashing light on the horizon and it might be something from Area 51 and a police officer gets dispatched. I mean, it sounds nefarious, obviously, when you're a suspicious incident, but they get called for all kinds of things. I mean, I saw something in the road and officer goes out there and says, yeah, it's a box turtle. It's almost to the other side now, but I don't know what those, I'm not making light of it. I don't know what those 5 calls were, but we'll certainly ask the chief, see if there's anything. All right, nothing else on the police, then we'll move to Public Works Department. Mr. Halverson, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anything in here that you want to highlight?
I mean, other than in the notes there, I'm waiting for some parts for, one of our salt spreaders, which is actually in 2015.
All right,
We've had it that long, it's still in really good shape, just the conveyor chain rotted out and I'm waiting, it should be here tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow or the next day. I got some extra parts to, upgrade it and make it a little more, hopefully get another 10 years out of it.
what else do we have that's ailing right now? I know we had a garbage truck.
We are in need of a new front end loader. I approached the board 2 years ago, I think about that, but, we're gonna have to do it, it's, 2002.
Okay,
I put tires on it. 2 years ago, they ran close to $10,000 just for the tires. So you're,
now you're talking about an excavator, correct?
front end loader, loading sanders, moving the big stuff. You're looking somewhere between $300,000 to $400,000.
For a new one?
Yeah.
Can you get a used one that's closer?
That looks new.
I wouldn't, not for that.
Not for that, because people beat the hell out of them and you don't wanna, okay.
What's the make? Is that the case loader? Case?
The one we have now is a case. I have a mini case, but yes,
Mini case is pretty new though.
but it will not do.
No, not the roads.
In a pinch, it keeps, we're able to load our sanders and salters
Yeah.
with it, but the big one's gonna have to be replaced in the near
So
future.
something like that you don't look at for mileage, because they're obviously not putting big miles on.
It's hours.
It's hours.
Hard hours. If you remember, it was, I think it was last summer. It actually shut down on us in the middle of the road and we had to have it, flatbedded from the boulevard to, Marlboro.
So you said 2002, so it's 21 years old?
It's an '02.
02, so
Right,
21
it's
years
old.
old? So where would you say it is on the hours? Is it beyond the useful shelf life for a piece of equipment that old?
Getting close to it for us, yes, hard hours.
Hey, would you end up keeping it or would you surplus it?
That would surplus. I wouldn't wanna have, you don't need two of those around.
Yeah.
All right.
It's too big.
Not for a municipality our size. Neighboring municipalities have 2, 3, but they leave them in different areas.
Why don't we?
For
tackle
snow,
about
it's a big piece of equipment for snow removal in the winter.
Right.
Are you gonna be good to get through this year? Because obviously we're not buying one tomorrow and it's not showing up here.
I had some
next
work done
Thursday.
on it recently.
Okay, all right. So maybe it's something that, as we head into the spring, bring a proposal to the board of what you think some options are, okay? All right, what else?
That's it.
All right, and you're gonna be available for me tomorrow after school.
I have to stay after school.
You do. I do too, and you'll be there with me.
Hey, Dave, is it the trees outside along the, the island there? This year I finally noticed, maybe I had obviously didn't notice. It's like outside here,
Yeah.
a lot of them are just. the
They
leaves are
held
just
on
coming
forever.
down, Like,
We didn't have a deep frost.
that's why.
I mean, there was no
So I was
real,
like, wow, they keep.
real freeze early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
And
so
it's-
that's why,
And
alright.
it's also the species of tree too.
Yeah.
Oak trees always hang on to their
Yeah.
leaves longer than everything
Yeah.
else. But the ones here, the deciduous ones, they're not oaks, but you're right, they're hanging on to their
This
leaves.
is the longest. This is
They hung on considerably longer this year. I have 2 pin oaks in my yard that usually drop, hang on.
Yeah.
Mine were gone before any of these were this year.
Really?
Yeah.
My 2 pin oaks are still full. Yeah,
Mine are bare.
all right. Well, you're on the other side of 9W, that's probably why.
I know, I'm over in Connecticut, right? Or-
It might as well be. All right, trustees, any questions for?
Pennsylvania, I went the wrong direction.
DPW super. No, hearing none? Oh, I'm sorry.
I see the item on here, continuing with FEMA paperwork for recovery, that's for the, it's obviously for the village, and that's granted, and, there's money in train. Do we have any, I don't know, it might be on the agenda, so apologies.
No.
Any word, I know that I gather that our politicians are still fighting for it, they're encouraging the governor to, for the individual assistance.
Oh, okay, yeah, so it was, Bill, we were gonna touch on that, under Mountain Road remediation, we were gonna talk about that, we talked about it this morning.
Got it.
But to your point, the answer on, I know that there are a number of elected officials, obviously at higher levels than the village board, that are continuing to tell me that they are fighting the fight to make that happen, but You know, I've heard from Congressman Ryan. I've spoken earlier to Senator Skoufis. I've spoken to Assemblymember Ekus. Yeah, I don't see the white horse coming in on this for individual assistance, and it's sad because, you know, I know that the problem is we didn't have the volume of homes damaged. The homes that were damaged and in dire need of it.
Right
But
after
because
the
in the
fire in
village it
Hawaii.
was 10 or 11,
Burned
in the
everything.
town it was 12 or 13, in Fort Montgomery it was, I don't wanna say a handful, but it was numbers like that. In Highland Falls it was a few more, Town of Highlands a few more, but it wasn't 500 homes wiped out, and that's, I think, if I'm speculating, the reason why they opted to do the municipal aid and not individual assistance. Now, I'll tell you this, and I'll brief the board on this more as we go forward. We're trying to do some things to help remediate, you know, water coming off the mountain and trying to help out as best we can for some of the homeowners. But it's tough, and you certainly can't go work on somebody's property and then somebody else says, well, you didn't do it on our property. You gotta be fair about these things. So we're working on it, but the answer to your question, Bill, is no. I've not heard anything in regards to them even, you know, making that happen. Dave's shaking his head. However, the good news is on that, and I'll strike this off of other business, we have all our submitted applications for remediation from the July 9th storm. So that's good news. It is in FEMA's hands, and I want to thank the water superintendent and the DPW superintendent for handling much of that heavy lifting to make sure that FEMA got everything they needed. They won't be able to say, well, Joe didn't give us this and we needed it, so. And what did we decide? I mean, initially, early on, we thought it was $3+ million worth of damage. Where are we realistically right now with total damage?
Probably 3.5. Yeah, probably around 3.5.
That's including water and
Yeah,
and
probably
road
around-
properties and obviously stuff on the
Yeah,
mountain.
probably around 3.5. It's still in the engineers and the upper level and FEMA to hammer out. We provided all the documents that we can for the remediation that we did right away, all the protective measures we did, and submitted our labor costs and material costs and stuff. But
Okay.
that'll come back pretty quick. The other stuff's gonna take time.
Oh, Jesus.
All right,
Anything on the bridge on the boulevard?
I saw that there is a thing on the town's post for tomorrow for their meeting for a temporary solution. But they have something on their agenda for tomorrow night, but I have not been briefed on what it is.
All right, before we get into the water department report, Mike, I thought it was interesting, you know, Barbara, our records manager, brought me something cool this morning. I just had a chance to take a look at it. And I've asked her to pull anything, and she's been scouring the minutes and the records of meetings to try to find anything on water rates. And so she pulled something up from dated February 10th of 1941, so 10 months before Pearl Harbor. So we're in the middle of World War II, and the Board of Trustees with Irving G. Kent as the mayor decided to supersede the Cornwall water rates, and it's effective the first quarter, January 1941 to April 1941. Water rates are to be changed to all consumers of water on the Village of Cornwall and Hudson water system as follows. For the first 5,000 gallons per in-state user, 48 cents per 1,000 gallons per quarter. And when you go to 20,000 gallons, then it drops to 36 cents per 1,000 gallons, all the way down to anything over 100,000 gallons, we're gonna charge you 10 cents per 1,000 gallons. I thought this was interesting too. In cases where a meter is not working and the consumer's bills have not been over $2.40 for the quarter, $2.40 per family, the minimum charge of $2.40 will be assessed to that family, so.
I'd like to pay
thought
off
you'd
my
get a
next
kick out
couple
of
years.
That's probably a decade.
I'm trying to buy next
You're
year.
kidding me, right?
I'm not kidding you.
So Dave Carnwright just told me that Mr. Kent, or Mayor
My
Kent, was
first.
his pit coach at Pitt
First.
basketball. Wow, 1941.
You remember
Interesting.
his son Jimmy, who rode around in had a wheelchair.
Did he?
He was in charge of rec department
Oh,
before.
wow, that was his son.
That
All
was his
right.
I remember Dave
All right,
rode a
just
horse
an
to,
interesting background.
he rode a horse to school.
Hudson River was a stream.
All right, Michael, anything on the water department report that jumps out that the trustees need to be aware of?
I just want to point out a couple things. We talked about FEMA, so you'll notice my one note that we're waiting for approval from FEMA to install new water main and valve up at Black Rock. It's $354,000 that's coming from FEMA. That's as a result of a claim made in 2021. So here we are. That was for Ida. So here we are, 2 years, going to be 3 years before it's installed.
Long time to get.
Was that exposed at the time?
No, this is actually in response to the work that the town did on the first bridge that got wiped out.
Right, okay.
So the work that they did affected our water system, so through cooperation with them, and some intervention from Congressman Ryan's office, he was able to get FEMA to pay for that.
Gotcha.
And then also down there, Justin mentioned planning and whatnot. You'll notice that we're waiting on approval for plans to replace the Maple Street water main next year. That's going to be about $1.3 million cost. We had a leak up there a couple weeks ago. That street is riddled with repair clamps. Dave doesn't work for the water department, but he's probably fixed 6 or 7 leaks
I
there.
think I've done 6.
Yeah. So that's on the list.
So repair clamps are temporary fixes or are they long-term fixes? They're temporary?
They're meant to be temporary, but they turn into be long-term.
Got it.
This one section of road up there is probably 75 feet. In the last 3 years, we've probably fixed 6 leaks.
It's all
And what is the clamp made of?
Stainless steel.
Stainless steel?
It's just real bad water main.
Is it transite?
No, it's pit cast metal,
Oh, okay.
pit cast steel. It's from the 50s, just real bad. And that is it. We had a couple rashes of overnight water leaks back at the end of November that we were able to take care of. So
Like I saw, you have 40 residential water meters were replaced, so what are we down to now?
well, we estimate we'll probably be down to about 60 at the end of this month. We're getting a lot of phone calls, the additional information in the local this week, the posts that we made on Facebook. People are calling, they're getting clarification.
I want to
It's,
thank Mike for that. Mike did obviously the heavy lifting on that draft that we posted on all the Cornwall sites, Living in Cornwall, all those, the community bulletin board, and put on our village Facebook page. And then the Cornwall Local just basically published that as well, showing the 3 different meters, the 2 types are outdated, the 1 type you're okay. Because, I mean, I know we all know this, but the erroneous information that floats around on social media, and it just takes one person to post something on one of those Cornwall social media sites, and all of a sudden it spreads like wildfire. They're gouging us. Why are they doing this to us? I didn't get a letter. I should have gotten a letter. Well, no, you have the meter. You didn't get a letter, but
Your letter did a good job.
the frustration. Well, a big chunk of that was Mike giving me the facts. It's always best to be armed with the facts, but I do blame myself. We probably should have got out in ahead of that. We had talked about it at work sessions, talked about it at business meetings, but not everybody watches, not everybody reads the local, and so sometimes you do need to put something out, a message, and I think that answered. So Mike, when we get to 0, you're gonna let me know, and we're gonna take you out to
Yep,
dinner.
and we may never get to 0 because there are some homes that are vacant. There are some homes that just don't respond, and we'll have to charge the fee.
But we're gonna get to the mid-90s. We're gonna.
Yeah, we're gonna get real close. And just one thing I wanted to point out, Dave mentioned his case loader. At the same time that we purchased a case loader, we purchased a case backhoe in 2002. I got an estimate the other day on Thursday, came in, it needs $23,000 worth of repairs. Spoke with Dave, we're gonna try and do some in-house, do some at the manufacturer or at the vendor. That is scheduled to be replaced in a couple of years, because when that was purchased, that was our frontline digging machine for leaks. We now have a mini excavator, so it's really kind of a backup for us. So we're not looking to replace it right away, we just wanna keep it going for the time being.
And with our repair team and everything, I know Tyler, Dave, you've been telling me is doing a good job. The stuff that we're supposed to be able to repair in-house, we're being able to do that, correct? Okay. All right, any questions for the water super? Hearing none, we'll move to New Windsor EMS. You know, the only number that I truly, well, that's not true. The one that I most care about is calls covered. And 426 total dispatches for the month, 100% of calls covered. Average response time, 7 minutes in New Windsor. In the town of Cornwall, 5 minutes and 25 seconds. In the village of Cornwall and Hudson, 5 minutes and 51 seconds. That is outstanding. That is from call to somebody banging on your door. Sir,
Pretty good.
How many calls did they respond to in the village?
I didn't give those numbers. I only gave the total number of dispatches were 426. They're saying now, if I go down and drill down, 285 patients transported, 237 in New Windsor, 911, 74 in Cornwall for 911, and then 11 in the village of Cornwall and Hudson for 911, 125 to date in the village of Cornwall and Hudson.
Just for the board's recognition, the fire department attended 10 of those EMS calls,
10 of the 11.
10 of the 11.
It's a pretty good number.
Can't answer for the last one. Our numbers say 10, their number says 11.
Got it.
I answer for that. We only go to ALS calls.
Okay.
We don't go to.
So it might have been a BLS call. Got it. All right, thanks. That's good. And that's laudatory. Excellent. Other than that, you guys have it in front of you. I'm glad to see when you got guys like Tim McCarty who are, you know, like lions in the industry, and he retires. It looks like they've got 3 new volunteers on board, 1 new part-time paramedic and 1 new part-time EMT. So that's excellent that they're refreshing the chain. All right.
They're looking for because Karen Edelman Reyes was elected to the town board. Looks like
Yes.
there's a vacancy on the EMS board for the Cornwall resident, so.
Yes. If any board members or any member of the public or anything, I don't know how they're going to advertise for that. Remember, keep in mind, that person serves whether or not they live in the village or in the town as the lone Cornwall and Hudson representative. We don't have 2 members on that board yet, but it's something that Josh and I are gonna lobby for, as we start looking at the number of calls in Cornwall and Hudson. But if you think of somebody, or you know somebody that would be good to replace Karen, it's gonna be tough to replace her. She was wonderful, but let us know, and we'll make the pitch to Michael Big and the New Windsor board. Okay, next item, moving on, is other business. Yes, the board is going to post, so I'm gonna ask the board for a resolution next Monday night to post for a part-time treasurer. The research that I've done of recent, along with our village clerk's office, I did not realize this, but the village has a full-time treasurer position available. The board, I don't want to say curtailed, but the board, and Jim, this is probably either before your time or maybe it was early on, but the board did trim the treasurer's hours back to a part-time capacity. But we don't have to go to New York State to appeal to them to create a new position. We have a position. I don't want to hire somebody full-time yet. I want to bring somebody on part-time, see if they're going to be a fit, see if they're going to be here for a while, see if it works, and then we will look at transitioning them. Some of the things that Justin Wood spoke about today are exactly what a full-time treasurer could do. Be looking at those things. What should we be converting to bonds? Where should we be best doing this? The kind of things that, you know, Paul is unable to do because she's focused on payroll and retirement stuff, and she's got a certain set of things she's doing. The part-time treasurer is gonna be worried about budget issues and reports and things like that. Having a full-time treasurer, I think, would allow us to try to figure out better ways and more ways to save the village money. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Okay, next item then, Fire Commission appointment. I believe that the only reason we received 3 applicants, which the board is in receipt of, the fire commissioners are, and the fire chief and assistant chief, they know who those people are. But I believe because we did not post it on social media, on our webpage, we wanted to make sure that we got as large a talent pool as possible from which to draw from. I believe we have until the 18th, which is next Monday night, which is the last day, which was a 2-week period, I believe, for them to do that, correct? Am I wrong? You're looking at me.
It went out on the village social on November 17th, after a discussion that you and I had.
Yes.
I don't know what the timeline is for that. I don't know that one was stated.
I think we gave it 2 weeks. Now, that would be more than 2 weeks if it was November 17th. And to my understanding, now the village clerk is away, she'll be back tomorrow, but the deputy village clerk told me she was unaware of any additional applications.
And I haven't received any correspondence from the clerk that she had.
Okay, perfect. So, but you are in receipt of the 3 that have applied? All right. So we have a meeting on Thursday with the fire chief. Chief, you're available for that meeting, and whoever else you think appropriate to attend. You and Jeff will be there, and Dave, and we will, and if we need to have a breakout meeting afterwards, just to kind of talk about that piece with fire commissioners and the chief, I'm happy to do that too. Okay, next item is, already did the budget update. Any trustee, any questions about what I'm looking for in there? I want you to go through that at your own leisure at your house. Any questions, you can reach out to Jean. Keep in mind, she's working for us part-time, so try to keep it during normal business hours, or 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. instead of being like me and texting people at 5 a.m. because if I'm up, why aren't you? I know, you're the only guy that texts me that I'm like, oh, it's gotta be Dave. All right, so please take a look at that, and if you have any questions, you gotta get those questions in this week or next week, because we're moving fast on that. Town water rate, I am going to make a petition on behalf of the village board, through council. I had a nice conversation with Judge McKay today, and David Decker, one of his associate counsels, on a whole host of things. But in regards to town water rates, I'm gonna suggest that the board requests that the town look at the possibility of what Mike Trainer had recommended in regards to selling water properties to the town for $1, and then allowing the town to exempt the property tax and the school taxes, at which point then I would not seek to adjust any water rates. In the event that they decide to say, no, we're not interested, then I'm going to come back to the board, and it doesn't have to happen in this budget. We can do it via board resolution at any meeting we want to. I've already checked on it. I will come back to the board and make an argument that we need to adjust by an additional differential of $2 per 1,000 gallons between anyone outside of the village and village consumers. And why is that? Because that number works out to be about $200,000, which is what the taxes are. And then, once that is done, if that's one of those 2 routes that we go, then I'm going to ask the board to consider, and obviously with Mike and with input from the water committee, which is still working, and I thank Jim Kane for being a part of that, the additional work, and him and the superintendent have been involved in, I would like to settle on what the board thinks the rate should be going forward.
Because you have to change the code,
You
right?
have to change the code, yeah. I mean, the code says right now, we're not charging people what they're supposed to be charged. We all understand and recognize that we're not gonna do something draconian. However, then the code needs to reflect that. But before we do that, I want to take care of this business of them refusing to exempt us on the property taxes and school taxes.
Creating a $200,000 revenue stream by changing the rates in the short term would not change the underlying dynamic. We would still be paying $200,000 a year in taxes.
Right.
It's almost arbitrary, given that, so like the next board, or in 4 years, if that was still happening, they'd say, hey, how come we're paying $200,000? Let's jack it up so we get $200,000 more revenue to,
I see what
to
you're
make
saying.
up
Well,
the difference.
Right, but at least there would be a more modern understanding.
Yeah,
Bill, like what I
right,
read
no,
tonight
I
was
get that.
1941, and the only thing that we can find of more recent vintage is 1972 when they made, I'm sorry, 73, Mike? The Doc Donahue board, 73, when they made that determination and didn't explain why.
The 80% was passed, when was the 80% passed?
1973.
That was that one, yeah.
73.
Yeah,
So yeah,
1973.
no, I understand. I
But
just,
I hear what you're
I
saying.
think it's a
and-
short term, if we had to. It would
Who's
be
on
a
the
short
board?
term
Well, Bill,
fix with the underlying issue changed. at the code
Understand
level,
completely.
for sure.
I'm looking at this as a start of negotiations.
sure.
And so, just as an option, you need leverage, and, like I said, we don't wanna hurt anybody. We just wanna make this fair. And if we're paying these taxes on it, then that's money that we're talking about right now. Yeah, the water department's in good shape right now, but we're one huge blowout on Maple away from not being in good shape, and him coming in and telling me, I need every bit of that $1.5 million to make sure that we can do this. So I'm just trying to think in that long-term phase, but your point is well taken. All right, next item of business, IMA to provide water to the town of Cornwall. Joe drafted that. Every trustee is in receipt of it. Michael added some clarifications to it, which I agreed with 100%. Absent hearing anything from the board, which silence means consent. I gave that back to Joe, asked Joe to clean it up, to just put the clarifications in there, to get a document which he was supposed to send me today, so I can send you guys a clean version, so you're not reading the line edits. And the next step, absent anybody have any problems, is for that IMA. Remember, this IMA is just basically says, the Village of Cornwall and Hudson is willing to provide water to the town of Cornwall. Yeah, it's gonna be more than just that, but that's it in a nutshell. There's not water rates, it's not anything into the weeds. He'll get that to Steve Gabba, the town's attorney, and if Steve says, I think the board will be comfortable with this, talks to Josh, then we will look to get that executed. And that will hopefully move us on towards being in a better position for grant funding and a whole lot of other things. All right, that's that. EV charging stations, Billy, anything extra or new to add to where we are with that?
Just, I did speak with NIPA, a fellow from Albany called me, and I talked him through the information that I had, and what I understood was what Central Hudson had explained about providing the power to the system. He said that he was gonna take it back and they would start to get a ballpark together, so we should have a comparable understanding of what they can do for us, as well as what we already have from Real Term. They had called again just to follow up, they're still interested. You know, depending on what the actual outlay is, I think that Real Term's, I spoke to them as well, I mentioned that, their quote included aspects of the infrastructure provision of powering up the poles to provide it. So with my understanding of what Central Hudson was offering, they may come down considerably as well. So we might be in a slightly different situation with two quotes from two potential vendors, and then so I am expecting to hear back from NIPA. They had said by end of Friday, but I didn't hear anything, so I'm anticipating sooner rather than later.
Awesome.
And we'll keep it going. And I also wrote to Central Hudson again just to clarify, make sure that I understood properly, so that I was telling these vendors the right thing.
Awesome. All right, love it. Good. All right, moving on to the Cornwall Yacht Club, Elisa Village property at the Donahue Memorial Park. All right, so I had a long conversation with council today, and so I make sure I have this straight. So the board, remember, passed a resolution last month to hold, not water, it's this one, to hold 2 public hearings on Monday. Well, as a result of my inquiry into the lease agreement, counsel for the yacht club has stated that they do not believe that us holding a public hearing is in their mind, in their interpretation of it, is not legal to do that. We are going to leave the public hearing open. We will probably not close it unless and until Judge McKay, in his research on this legal matter, comes back this week and says there's reason for us to do that. Remember, our whole point in doing this was to narrow the road to allow them to enter into an agreement that they are already in with CSX so that they could park on the east side of Shore Road. They are still not maintaining that Shore Road is ours down there. So that issue has not been resolved. And I read the correspondence from their counsel to our counsel, and I thought this matter had been resolved and we were working toward this mutually agreeable solution. The second piece on this is they believe that the village arguing that we can and should void the lease is also illegal. I'm a contract guy. If I shake your hand and tell you I'm gonna pay this mortgage and sign on the dotted line, I'm gonna send you the payment when it's owed. However, when it comes to municipalities, the law looks at it very, very differently, and Jimmy could probably speak to it better than I can. Long story short, their argument is that they are foiling a bunch of things, which our clerk is putting together in a timely fashion to get to them. They have foiled, and they didn't need to. We gave them a copy of the appraisal that this village paid for, which they have a right to for that piece of property, but we did the legwork. We shelled out the money and we did it, which we've already given to them. And I requested a meeting And from council, it's like, I'm not, authorized to, I'm not in a position to authorize any meetings. And I'm like, well, if we're not gonna have a meeting to sit down and talk about this, then the next step is for us to draft a legal argument why the contract that was signed in 1986 in 4 25-year installments for $250 a month is a gift to the, I'm sorry, a year is a gift to the yacht club. When I say a gift, I don't mean that in a figurative way. I mean, it is considered a gift because you wouldn't give that to somebody else, that property is valued at much more than that. There should have been escalation clauses built in, and a 100-year lease is just not tenable when you're a municipality. So anyway, it's in the lawyer's hands right now. If they wanted to meet, they call tomorrow and say, let's get together and talk. Absolutely, doors always open. If
think-
not, go ahead.
I spoke to McKay about this, and I think, it's not that they're not ready to have a meeting yet, because I think they're waiting on the full response to the FOIL request. And then upon that, I mean, what I'm saying is this, once they get that, we could end up having this meeting, in the next few weeks or the beginning of January. That's what I'd anticipate.
Right, so the FOIL request, which is pending, which we are working on, but we've already given them something that was part of that FOIL request, which was the appraisal. And then they're seeking a written discussion of the village's legal argument that it has a clear path to a judicial declaration that the church property, which is the Cornwall Landing property, lease from the village to the Cornwall Yacht Club is voidable. And that's gonna be the argument, because no one here is arguing that there isn't a contract. There was a contract signed in 1986. Our argument is that a legal binding contract today if you make a bad deal? And it's a bad deal if we're charging other people market rate for things, including not-for-profits. How do we do it for a private club? And if somebody thinks that we should, and that I'm wrong, tell me. I will say this, I've had a number of conversations with members that have either stopped me on the street, stopped in to pay a water bill and poked their head in, and after a 25 or 30-minute conversation and walking through what the village's position is, had a better understanding of why we're doing this. I just want a fair deal. I don't want a village board a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, 100 years from now to have to relitigate this. And I don't want the yacht club to have to do that either. That's not fair to them either, so. All right, so that's where that is. Next thing, I had a conversation with the delightful Dave Decker, who I just described as one of Judge McKay's associates. We're not giving up on this addendum that requires the wires to be removed. What they are pushing back, Verizon and Spectrum, is, well, we can't just go to the whole village. You call us with a specific spot. And I said, I know, Dave and Joe, but the problem is that's what residents do now. And then you're just put on a list, and it's one of those things, we'll get to you when we get to you. I want a quid pro quo. You put up new line, new fiber, new cable. You're cleaning up in between the poles where you're putting it. They're trying to work that out. Then the other argument becomes whether or not, would the village ever get free Wi-Fi from them? And I'm saying, well, it's a community thing. You do it for, our buildings, and you do it for our open spaces like the Donahue Farm property or Donahue Memorial Park. They would probably consider giving us some type of better deal, better rate, but the notion of giving it to us free, and I understand, it's like, all this is negotiation, trying to get the best deal we can. So that is still being worked on. They're working up some language now. Once Dave gets that language, he'll get it to the board, we'll take a look at it. And so long as they're good on the other end, we'll finally get this thing done. All right, next item, if there's no questions on that, I think we touched on it, the Mountain Road remediation. We're looking at a lot of different things in regards to how best to do that. My problem is, and I got 2 phone calls today from people up on the mountain about storm drains before the storm came, and part of their complaint was because my neighbor's house, it just runs right off of their property onto mine, is where to put the water. And anything that we do on the roadways that impacts, you know, other people's property. Everybody, and I'm not suggesting these people weren't concerned about people down mountain from them, but every complaint they have is, I want it off my property. And then when I say, but where can it go? Somewhere else. But there's only so many somewhere else's that you can send it. And unfortunately, the people down toward the bottom of the mountain are the ones that get hit the hardest with that. So we're trying to work that out. We're hoping that some of this remediation from FEMA will be able to do some structural stuff in regards to culverts and not the gullies or trenches. What are the terms for?
Culverts.
There are culverts, yeah. Well, the culverts that go under the road that are like the box culverts, and what about just the runoff areas on the sides of roads? What would you, how would you describe that? Runoff area on the side of the road? All right.
The ditch.
Ditch lines, okay, all right. I'll keep in a loop on that. So anyhow, we haven't talked about this in a while, the Moodna Creek Watershed Intermunicipal Council. Believe it or not, this was something that Mayor Coyne was a member of the council on behalf of the village. They meet, obviously, to talk about and how to protect, in ways to protect the watershed, which is important to us and a lot of contiguous communities around here. I didn't realize it because it'd been so quiet, and I hadn't gotten any emails from them until I got this in the mail. And basically, they said, "Yeah, we've been quiet for a while. We've had to take care of some other things. Obviously, we had COVID going on, and this, that, and the other thing. We're looking to get back at this, and so they want to know about our attendance and participation." I think, and I'm going to ask because Trustee Brain drew the short straw, because I said, "Bill, this would be something perfect if you're interested," and I want him to read it first before he commits. But we need 2 members. We need a primary and an alternate. I don't mind being the alternate if you're the primary. And it
Would
would,
you come with me to the first one?
you have my word, and then you're sucked in for life then, for as long as you're on the board.
I'm familiar with the organization.
All right, good. I will come to the first one if that's the deal.
I mean, unless Dave wants it, he is on the.
Dave is on every day that
Conservation
ends in
Advisory
Y.
Council.
Yeah.
I know, I have those
Yeah.
meetings once a month.
I think, so, in 2016, representatives agreed by unanimous vote that each municipal executive member of the council shall pay $500 a year in dues to support the council's mission. The Orange County Water Authority continues to act as the fiscal agent for the council, which is not incorporated. The current balance in the council's funding is $9,683.09. This was sent to me by, I don't know if you've met him, but Bill and I know who he is. Bill probably knows him a lot better than I do. Simon Gruber, Jay Beaumont is the vice chairman, Joanna Kiernan is the secretary, and Anika Cruz is the OCWA administrator. So what I'm gonna argue is that Bill and I go to the first meeting, as long as Bill takes the primary and I'm the alternate. We go to the first meeting, we come back and report to the board. I think $500 for the annual dues would be well worth our effort to be having this council, being a part of this council. All right, so that's that. And wow, that takes me down to the bottom, and for your information, okay, tomorrow, and I'm gonna get these times wrong, but I know as soon as school lets out, Santa is gonna be in the big Santa chair that the Cornwall on Hudson Special Events Committee, and really, I wanna send a shout out to Elizabeth Bruschi, who has done just an amazing job. If you have seen those, for lack of a better term, gargantuan toy soldiers that are in front of the Storm King Theater entrance where the Santa chair is. And today, which Trustee Bailiota mentioned, there are 2 more that are outside of the bandstand, and they've really done a really super job. And I say this stuff is infectious. People see us taking the effort to decorate and do things, then they do it. And if your neighbor does it, then you get excited and you do it. And it really is infectious. People have told me a number of times, driving down Hudson Street and coming into the village now with the menorah, with the great lighting that DPW and Eugene Randazzo's crew did for the bandstand, the great lighting that our guys, Eugene's guys, and the New Windsor guys that brought over the bucket truck to do the tree and light it up really nice this year. It's infectious, it's good, and I hope that if it causes one more visitor to go eat at one of our restaurants because it's a cool atmosphere, then it's worth it. So tomorrow that starts when the kids get out of school. So I'm thinking like shortly after 3. Dave, I'm just gonna need your help because they want Santa to relight the tree. I will be there to help out and do my thing. And if I have to be there, you have to be there. So trustees, if you get an opportunity to stop by, if you're available,
Yeah,
stop
I'll
by.
be
Then on Saturday, and I just texted my wife to ask her, Saturday's why am I texting her when
know.
you're right here? So Saturday on Main Street in the town,
Yeah.
the Cornwall Youth Committee is doing the youth activities that they weren't able to do for Winterfest. And what
Correct.
would those youth activities include?
There is a cookie craft. We have snow machines and what else we have? We'll have some. You can write a letter to Santa, and
Is that on the bridge, all that stuff?
yeah, it's right over by the
nice.
bridge. Yeah.
You're by the bridge. That's good.
All right. Awesome, thank you. So I will be at both of those, and I hope to see you guys swing by as well. All right, so for your information, the next zoning board meeting is December 14th at 7 PM. The village holiday party is scheduled for December 14th, which is also Thursday. It starts, at 5 o'clock to 8 PM at Storm King Lounge. I think the Lions are there tomorrow night, American Legion, we have ours there on Wednesday night, and then Thursday night, the village.
And Friday night is CACC.
And Friday night is CACC. Planning board meeting is scheduled for December 19th at 7 PM. Keep in mind for Christmas, the village offices will be closed December 22nd and 25th. So that means on Friday and Monday. All right, same thing applies for New Year's. We're closed December 29th and January 1st, Friday, Monday.
What about garbage? Let's get that out.
All right, the garbage.
Let's get it out there.
If the guys are off on the day that your garbage is getting picked up, it's not getting picked up till the next week.
Let's speak to the people here. Let's
Same
get
on the north
garbage-
side of Hudson Street. and
garbage
the south
schedule
side?
for the holidays.
Get your normal pickups.
Normal pickups.
Okay.
Yep, normal pickups. Okay, so if the guys are off and your pickup is on a Friday, like mine is, you don't get garbage picked up on Friday. You gotta wait till the next Tuesday.
I'm so
Right.
confused.
Okay? All right, exactly. Mine are Tuesday and Friday. When are yours? You don't even know.
Well,
You don't even know.
Thursday-
What does that
Thursday
say?
and Monday.
Yes, Monday.
You
Thank
didn't
you.
know though.
Can I have a minute?
If you asked my wife when our garbage goes out, she could not tell you. She had no
Thursday
idea.
and Monday. Thursday and Monday. Thursday and Monday.
All right, let's,
he's got a question.
Mr. Giampolo.
Ladies Auxiliary will be providing hot chocolate and cookies tomorrow.
Yes.
From the firehouse?
From the
There-
firehouse for the Santa extravaganza.
We're gonna get tables over by the bandstand and we're
Ah,
Ah, very cool.
like they did last time.
Absolutely, very
And the
cool,
hot chocolate was so good.
very cool. All right.
Thank you, Carol.
Yes. So, I'm gonna go around the board real quick. I'm gonna start tonight though, cause I will forget. The menorah lighting last Thursday, I was very pleased to see a really nice turnout from the village. I thought, just especially at this time of year, and especially in light of what's going on in the Middle East, I thought it was very appropriate. I want to say thank you to my colleagues on the board because all four of them were there. And I saw a lot of other people there as well in the community and outside the community. I want to thank Elizabeth Bruschi and the Special Events Committee and the Cornwall Youth Committee and all the committees that are doing all these really cool things for the holidays. I think it's been really, really well received. And I think that is it. If I have an alibi, I'll come back, but I'll throw it to the deputy mayor.
I second whatever that guy just
Mm.
said.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
No, it was all good.
Bill, you
Nothing
got
else to
something?
say.
Bill's got something.
Dave goes, Bill has something.
I can tell, he just put his hand up.
No, I was just thinking. I'll be unable to attend our meeting on Monday next week as I have a planned medical procedure.
Oh, okay.
I trust everything.
I'm getting a new hip.
All right, we'll take care of
Be a
it.
little bit of a recovery.
Well, good
All
luck,
right,
good
all
luck.
right, good luck.
Yeah,
Good luck
we'll
with
be.
that. All right. Lori Beth.
I was gonna ditto what you said, so I.
Ditto, ditto. All right, any other alibis from the board? Superintendents, anything to add, any alibis? If not, I am going to make a motion to close the meeting. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Mike or Dave, real quick, can you stop that so that remember, all these mics are live until Mike gives me the thumbs up that that's squared away. And then Lori Beth wants to heckle us with some type of gag gift here.
You make it so easy.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, does anybody,
I usually just pull the plug.
What am I looking at here?
No, just hit the stop. Hit the stop right there. Yes, yes.
You killed it?
I didn't get you anything.
Well, I told her she's making us feel bad. I actually like that. Now, are we able to trade if our gift